Russell Wilson, even despite the news that has come out of Seattle over the past couple of weeks, there's no way in my mind that Russell Wilson gets traded. And a lot of people are going to see the headline for this, and it's going to be something along the lines of Russell Wilson will not be traded. And they're going to see that headline and they're going to say, well, duh. Of course he's not going to be traded. Why would you think otherwise? But the media has been pushing this narrative that either A, Russell Wilson wants to be traded, or B, the Seattle Seahawks will trade Russell Wilson over the next couple of weeks. And that's something that kind of irritates me as media, as what media does. You know, even working as a writer on my beat, there are different personality traits for each of the publications that work on this particular beat. I have covered college sports for about 5 years at this point. There's a publication that's always going to take the negative approach. There's a publication that's always going to take the positive approach. And then there's me and my publication, which just takes the literal realist approach. And, you know, each publication has its good and bad days, its good and bad stories, as every publication does. But, you know, when you work in the business as long as I have, you really start to see how narratives start to be shifted and how everybody takes a piece of news differently. And apparently everybody is taking the Russell Wilson news that's been coming out of Seattle as Russell Wilson, and the tension is so high that he's going to be traded, or he wants to be traded, he wants out of Seattle. And me, the realist in the room, is just saying, there is no way that Russell Wilson gets traded this offseason. I would be extremely surprised if he does. I don't think that, you know, maybe there's a possibility that he'll be traded next season if the results of this upcoming season for Seattle are not to his liking, not satisfactory enough. But as it pertains to right now in this season, there is no way that he gets traded, and I'm really kind of irritated that the media is just pushing this narrative. I mean, is there really nothing else to talk about? So, and again, the latest news in the Russell Wilson saga is that Russell Wilson and his agent have laid out 4 teams that Russell Wilson would waive his no-trade clause for, and those teams are the Cowboys, the Raiders, the Saints, and the Bears. And this is taken by the media to be, okay, look, Russell Wilson wants to be traded to these places. He could be traded to these places. And for me, the realist in the room, again, is just saying, look, this is an emergency glass list for Russell Wilson. If the Seahawks ever feel the need to trade Russell Wilson, these are the teams that he would go to, and nothing more. And, you know, you take a look at those teams, and that further solidifies my stance that he's just not going to be traded, because I take a look at all of these teams and I say, well, there's not really an option that's viable enough for the Seattle Seahawks to want to be a trade partner with that team. And again, since Russell Wilson has a no trade clause, theoretically, in a situation if Russell Wilson did want to be traded, the Seahawks wouldn't really have much of a choice, especially if he's demanding a trade like Deshaun Watson is. But you take a look at these teams, the Cowboys, they have their own financial situations with Dak Prescott. They seem committed to Dak. They seem to want to be able to work that out, but there's a lot of issues besides the money in Dallas. Jerry Jones is an issue. I think Mike McCarthy is an issue. And I don't think that Dallas would have enough to offer Russell Wilson in the long term in order for him to feel comfortable in that specific scenario. They have some cap issues to work out, and along the line of cap issues, the Saints are anywhere from $65 to $80 million over the cap for this upcoming season, and Russell Wilson has a $32 million cap hit for this season. The Saints would have to give up multiple players and multiple picks to get Russell Wilson, and although I'm sure they can find the money somewhere to pull it off, I just think that puts too much of a strain on the Saints in a position in which they already have a lot of strain on their salary cap. And I think Russell Wilson has 3 more years on his contract, so again, that would just be more financial hell for the Saints. It would keep them relevant for sure. They would be Super Bowl contenders, and really, the thing to note is that no matter where Russell Wilson goes, he's probably going to make that team a quote-unquote Super Bowl contender. And when you look at the Raiders and the Bears, the Raiders, they're an interesting fit. You know, admittedly, when it comes to my knowledge of NFL teams, the Raiders are probably on the bottom of my totem pole in terms of knowledge. I think John Gruden is stuck in the past coach. I think the inconsistency with the Raiders has kind of shown that over the last couple of years. And, you know, the Bears, I have a great head coach in Matt Nagy and a great defense, but, you know, they have some holes to fix themselves. And, you know, the thing that also really just sticks out to me is that, you know, all of these teams that Russell Wilson would want to go to, what they would be able to give the Seahawks in return, most of it is draft capita. So we're talking multiple first round picks. And the reality is that no matter where, again, and I've said this already, that no matter where Russell Wilson goes, he's probably going to make that team a playoff or Super Bowl contender. So no matter what first round pick you're getting from whatever team, they're going to be better, and their first round pick is going to be less valuable. It's not like you're trading Russell Wilson to a non-contender and making them a somewhat contender, and they'll still end up in the bottom 15 teams of the league, and you'll get a really high draft pick in compensation for Russell Wilson. That's just not something that's going to happen if you trade Russell Wilson. So that by itself is already kind of depleting the Seahawks' interest in trading him, because you're not really going to get, sure, you may get first rounders back, but you're not going to get the type of first rounder that you would be expecting, even if it's for subsequent years. You know, let's say that he gets traded to the Cowboys, and then the Cowboys are in the playoffs for the next 3 years. You're going to get anywhere from like a 25 to a 32nd draft slot in the first round, and sure, that's great in subsequent years, but that's nothing to replace the talent that Russell Wilson has brought to your football team. On top of the $32 million cap hit that the Seahawks are going to have to absorb this season, which puts them in a delicate situation because they have some extensions to make. They're probably going to want to extend Jamal Adams. He is not going to come very cheap. Just everything logically, I suppose, about Russell Wilson and Seattle points to the fact that he is just not going to be traded, and I'm extremely tired of the media pushing the narrative that he will be. You know, you run through all the situations, and it's like you can see how maybe potentially these teams can work it out, but unless Russell Wilson is physically demanding a trade, there is no reason why the Seattle Seahawks would want to trade him. And even if this quote-unquote tension between Russ and the Seattle Seahawks is real, as the Athletic was reporting, you know, I think the underlying sentiment here is that with this new Me Too movement that Deshaun Watson has been starting in the NFL, where a lot of teams are just speaking up, you know, this is the byproduct of that with Russell Wilson, where he's being not necessarily, he's being critical of his franchise, but in kind of like an endearing, nudging way. In a sense that's like, okay, this is constructive criticism for the franchise. He's not completely bashing the franchise. And this is probably exactly what Seattle needs at the end of the day. They may not like it now, but, you know, this is probably exactly what Seattle needs. I know we're kind of going into a different stretch of the argument here in this segment, but, you know, Seattle Seahawks, they're very much a team that has been stuck in 2013, 2014, and I feel like Pete Carroll, as an NFL football coach, has been very stuck in that 2013, 2014 range in terms of where they are as a football team. You know, they were in the Super Bowl those 2 years, and they haven't really quite made it back, and that's because Pete Carroll has been seemingly stuck in that time period, and they have been unable to evolve. And, you know, Russell Wilson's criticisms of the offensive line are valid, but at the end of the day, also Russell Wilson is a quarterback that extends play with his legs, and he absolutely holds the ball for way too long, and I would guarantee you that about half of his sacks are probably Russell Wilson's fault as well. So there needs to be some open dialogue between Russell Wilson and the franchise, and I think that's all that Russell Wilson is asking for, is there for there to be more open dialogue between the two parties, and for his voice to be heard a little bit more in order to fix the situation that the Seattle Seahawks are in, which is really just being stuck in 2013, 2014, because they haven't been able to really replicate that success in close to, you know, 7-something years. And, you know, a lot of Seattle Seahawks fans will say it's a Pete Carroll problem. Some will think it's more just an organizational problem as a whole. The other half of it is that the NFC West is probably one of the best divisions in football. You've had the Rams go to the Super Bowl. You've had the 49ers go to the Super Bowl in recent memory. You know, so this open dialogue between, you know, Seattle and Russell is something that I actually see as a positive thing moving forward. Sure, it's going to be tense right now, but, you know, reports are is that Russell Wilson had endorsed the new offensive coordinator hire, which I can't remember the name at this point, but, you know, all that Russell Wilson has been doing by speaking out in public interviews has been taking the inspiration from Deshaun Watson to try and better the stance and the position that his franchise is in, trying to, you know, wake up Pete Carroll and say, hey, stop living in 2013. We got to make changes now. We got to evolve now. And even though that might be tense right now, I think that's something that will benefit the franchise overall. And again, that all coming back to the main point of the segment, with that dialogue now being open between Russell Wilson and Seattle, that honest dialogue, now the team has a chance to move forward and, you know, really get back into the swing of things, not being so inconsistent over the course of the season. And the idea of trading Russell Wilson does not fall anywhere into that for me. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's just a media-strung narrative. And again, I would be very surprised if Russell Wilson gets traded. Extremely surprised. And again, as we said to start the segment, out of all the teams that he listed that he would be comfortable going to, and he would waive his no-trade clause going to, none of all of them have their problems too. Almost all of them have their problems too. So it's not exactly like the saying is that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. And I think, especially in the case of like the Cowboys, especially with, what's going on with Jerry Jones, if you think that you can't get through to Pete Carroll, you probably won't be able to get through to Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones is a very stubborn person. But yeah, Russell Wilson is not going to get traded. We'll be very surprised if he does. I'm tired of the media pushing that narrative. It seems very silly to me at this point. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching this segment from the Hard Headed Sports Podcast. You've heard what I've had to say. Now I'm interested to hear what you think as well. If you enjoyed this highlight from the show and want to watch more highlights from the show as they come out after the show's completion, you should definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you're interested in listening to the entire show in its full-length entirety, you should follow the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you all very soon.